Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. One more time, Haribol. Hare Rama. One more time, Haribol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. We were enjoying beautiful meditative chanting of the holy name by Nanda Govinda and his sister Chuta Gopi. We will be discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, verse 39, verse 37. And we are in the chapter entitled The Prayers by Bhishma Dev in the presence of, the passing of Bhishma Dev in the presence of Lord Krishna. And the class will be given by Mother Gita from ISKCON Atlanta. Hare Krishna, Mother Gita. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. And without further delay, Mother, you can start right on with the class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jayam Vishnupad Paramahams Parivrajakacarya Stotra Srimad His Divine Grace C.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jadvaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyam Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samved Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gau Premanande Hari Hari. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarini. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jai Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Excuse me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So we are continuing with Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, The Passing Away of Bhishma Dev, text number 37. Swanigamam apahaya mat pratichanam ritam adhikartum avaplutarat sataha dritaratha charanobhyayacha chaladgur harir iva hantum ibham gato tariyaha. Swanigamam apahaya mat pratijanam ritam adhikartum avaplutarathastha dritaratha charanobhyayachaladgur harir iva hantum ibham gato tariyaha. Swanigamam apahaya mat pratijanam ritam adhikartum avaplutarathastha dritaratha charanobhyayachaladgur harir iva hantum ibham gato tariyaha. Swanigamam, own truthfulness, apahaya, for nullifying, mad pratijanam, my own promise, ritam, factual, adhi, more, kartum, for doing it, avaplutaha, getting down, rathastaha, from the chariot, thrita, taking up, ratha, chariot, charanaha, wheel, abhyayat, went hurriedly, kaladubhu, trampling the earth, harihi, lion, iva, like, hantum, to kill, ibham, elephant, gata, leaving aside, utariyaha, covering cloth. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. Purport. The Battle of Kurukshetra was fought on military principles, but at the same time in a sporting spirit, like a friend's fight with another friend. Duryodhana criticized Bhishma Dev, alleging that he was reluctant to kill Arjuna because of paternal affection. A Kshatriya cannot tolerate insults on the principle of fighting. Bhishma Dev therefore promised that the next day he would kill all 5 Pandavas with special weapons made for the purpose. Duryodhana was satisfied and he kept the arrows with him to be delivered the next day during the fight. By tricks, Arjuna took the arrows from Duryodhana, and Bhishma Dev could understand that this was the trick of Lord Krishna. So he took a vow that the next day Krishna would have to take up weapons himself Otherwise, his friend Arjuna would die. In the next day's fighting, Bhishma Dev fought so violently that both Arjuna and Krishna were in trouble. Arjuna was almost defeated. The situation was so tense that he was about to be killed by Bhishma Dev the very next moment. At that time, Lord Krishna wanted to please his devotee Bhishma by keeping Bhishma's promise, which was more important than his own. Seemingly, he broke his own promise. He promised before the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra that he would remain without weapons and would not use his strength for either of the parties. But to protect Arjuna, he got down from the chariot, took up the wheel of the chariot, and hurriedly rushed at Bhishma Dev in an angry mood as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He dropped his covering cloth on the way, and out of great anger, he did not know that he had dropped it. Bhishma Dev at once gave up his weapons and stood to be killed by Krishna, his beloved Lord. The fighting of the day was thus ended at that very moment, and Arjuna was saved. Of course, there was no possibility of Arjuna's death because the Lord himself was on the chariot. But because Bhishma Dev wanted to see Lord Krishna take up some weapon to save his friend, the Lord created the situation, making Arjuna's death imminent. He stood before Bhishma Dev to show him that his promise was fulfilled and that he had taken up the wheel. Translation once again. Fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we are continuing with the passing away of Bhishma Dev. Here Bhishma Dev is talking about how fortunate he was that Lord Krishna was right in front of him, in front of his eyes, as he was about to leave the body. And just before leaving his body, we all know that Bhishma Dev, he had that benediction that he could leave his body at his own will. We don't have that option, but he did. So just before leaving, Bhishma Dev is remembering this most wonderful pastime, how Krishna broke his own promise to keep the promise of his devotee Bhishma Dev. Now, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has given us the backdrop of how, Bhishma Dev was kind of instigated by Duryodhana, telling him, oh, you love the Pandavas so much, even though you're on my side, I know you're not going to kill them because of so much love and affection you have for them. So Bhishma Dev at that time, of course, that was like an insult. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that an insult for Kshatriya is very, very, what you would say is something that they cannot tolerate. It's beyond tolerance. So immediately Bhishma Dev, using all his piety and his austerities, all the results of that, he put them in these 5 arrows. And he gave these 5 arrows to Duryodhana to keep it safely. And he said, I'm going to use these arrows tomorrow and kill all the 5 Pandavas. And Duryodhana was very happy. And of course, the Supreme Lord Krishna, he knows what's going on and what's happening. Everything happens according to his will. No one can, do anything without the sanction from the Supreme Lord Krishna. So Krishna knew, so he sent Arjuna to trick Duryodhana and take those 5 arrows away so that those 5 brothers could be saved. But then on the other hand, we also see Prabhupada says, when Krishna is on the side of the Pandavas, there is no way the Pandavas can be killed. They have the support of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So Bhishma Dev, when he came to know that, these 5 arrows have been taken away, by Arjuna, and this was a trick of Krishna, he made a promise. He said that tomorrow I am either Krishna is going to break his promise or I'm going to kill the Pandavas. At least Arjuna, I'll kill Arjuna. And what was the promise that Krishna had taken before the war? That he would not pick up any weapon. That was his promise. He said he will be there as a chariot driver of Arjuna, and he's not going to pick up any weapons. Now, Bhishma Dev, he actually knew that Krishna would rather break his own promise than break the promise of his pure devotee. And so Bhishma Dev, was able to realize that because he had a very special relationship with Krishna. It was almost, you can call it a divine rasa. It was so beautiful. So here we see that Bhishma Dev, he is relishing, just thinking about this pastime, he's relishing the relationship, his relationship with Krishna. Excuse me. So the next day, Bhishma Dev, he started firing arrows at Arjuna. He started shooting arrows. And Krishna, he was sitting down as a chariot driver, but he immediately stood up to, make sure that the arrows don't touch, Arjuna. But Krishna himself was facing those arrows. And of course, Prabhupada has explained in one of the other lectures that these arrows that were hitting Krishna, they were like flowers, they were like flowers being shot at him. It felt like, so smooth and cooling and so very pleasant. They were not arrows that were piercing through Krishna's body. That's not possible. That's Krishna, the Supreme Lord. So Krishna stood up to face those arrows, and that made Bhishma Dev more determined to fight. He was like in the Virya Ras, that I got to fight. And here it appeared that Arjuna was in a helpless condition. And he was like depending on Krishna to save him. And Krishna noticed that, oh, Arjuna is now feeling like, oh, I really need help because I'm going to be killed any time. Now, one may say that Arjuna was a pure devotee of the Lord. He knew when Krishna is on his side, that's why he chose Krishna on his side and not the army of Krishna. So there was no need for him to be afraid. But Krishna had put him in that consciousness so that he forgets, so that Bhagavad Gita, that's the reason Bhagavad Gita was spoken for us, for our benefit. So here, Krishna noticed that Arjuna is thinking, oh, I am helpless. I may die at any time. So at that time, Krishna got down from the chariot. And what he did, he picked up the wheel and he started racing towards Bhishma Dev to kill him. And it is said, I was listening in one lecture, that when Krishna started going, rushing, it's not just walking, what you call a pleasure walk or something. He was rushing towards Bhishma Dev. At that time, Arjuna caught hold of the thighs of Krishna to stop him. No, don't go, don't go. Why? Because Arjuna was so compassionate. He did not want Krishna to break his promise because just to save him. He didn't want that. So he was trying to, can anyone stop Krishna? Nobody can stop Krishna. Krishna wants to do something, he will do it. So in spite of Arjuna trying to stop him from going, Krishna rushed towards Bhishma Dev. And that is what this verse is talking about, that how, so Bhishma Dev is remembering this pastime Of course, he's already lying on the bed of arrows. You know, the war is over and the Pandavas have already won the war. But Bhishma Devi is remembering that pastime and relishing. And, you know, so here he could understand, Bhishma Devi could understand that Krishna wants to fulfill his desire, Bhishma Devi's desire. And that is what made the relationship more sweet, more nectarian. And so while leaving the body, Bhishma Devi is remembering this pastime. Why do we have so many pastimes of Krishna and his pure devotees in Srimad Bhagavatam? So that we can hear them, we can read about them, we can understand them, relish them, and kind of increase our love for Krishna. It is said, Prabhupada says that these pastimes are like a window to the spiritual world. You can, you know, just like from the window, we try to admire the view, especially those of us who go, you know, especially on vacations, you know, to a beach or whatever it is. So the first thing that is done is open the window and see the view, how beautiful it is outside. So these pastimes, they are like a window to the spiritual world. So since Krishna was, excuse me, since Krishna was fulfilling the desire of Bhishma Dev, he wanted to make it more relishable for Bhishma Dev. So outer garment was falling off. Perspiring, Krishna was perspiring, drops of perspiration, you know, and then his flower garland also swinging. So this whole, you can call it this whole view of this beautiful Krishna rushing towards Bhishma Dev, that touched Bhishma Dev's heart. Now, in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna was present in the Kurukshetra war, in the Mahabharata war. He was there. And he was on the side of Arjuna. So there's no way Arjuna could have been killed. That's why Prabhupada says almost defeated. Arjuna was almost defeated. So it didn't say Arjuna was defeated. No, almost. Because Krishna was on his side. And here, towards the end, the only desire that Krishna had was to fulfill the desire of his loving devotee, Bhishma Dev. So Krishna created this whole situation, Prabhupada says. He created. Sometimes, you know, devotees ask, why did that pastime take place? Why didn't it happen like this? Or why not like that? It's Krishna's desire. He creates the situation. He wants to fulfill the desires of his devotees, of his pure devotees. So this is the loving exchange between, we can see between Krishna and Bhishma Dev. You know, if when we love someone, excuse me, when we love someone, we are happy to be defeated completely. You know, we don't mind because we love that person so much. So here, Srila Prabhupada is saying one very important point. Of course, all points are important. That the Kurukshetra war was fought on military principles in a sporting spirit. What does that mean? That means it's as if a fight between a friend and a friend. So they followed the principles of the war, which was that no one would pick up weapons after sunset. As the sun would set, that would be the end of the war for the day. It's not that anyone would cheat and, you know, everyone drops the weapons and one of the enemies goes and kills somebody. No. As soon as sunset, war is over for the day. And then they would sit together, all of them with the enemies, and eat prasadam. And no one would, another principle was no one would attack someone unarmed. If someone doesn't, say, supposing one person is fighting and, drops the weapon, the other party is not going to take advantage of that and kill that person unarmed. They might pick up the weapon and give it to them and say, oh, here, come on, let's continue the fight. So they followed those moral principles that were laid down for the war, and they followed it completely. So here we see, excuse me, that Bhishma Dev, this is a very good lesson for us, that at the time of death, to think of Krishna. Of course, we don't know when we are going to die. That is why Prabhupada suggests that we should think of Krishna all the time, because we don't know when we are going to die. So here, Bhishma Dev, he is like remembering that how he felt so insulted by Duryodhana. When Duryodhana accused him for loving the Pandavas more than the Kauravas. But Bhishma Dev, being a pure devotee of the Lord, he knew Duryodhana is not going to win the war. Krishna is on the other side. The Pandavas are definitely going to win the war. So Bhishma Dev he was pretending to be very upset that the arrows were taken away, but he knew the plan of Krishna, that Krishna wants to fulfill his desire. Now, from the part of the purport where Srila Prabhupada is talking about Arjuna was almost defeated. Excuse me. From that we can understand, if we have Krishna on our side, there's no way we can be defeated. Now, that doesn't mean it's only lip service. Yeah, Krishna is on my side. I love Krishna. That's just lip service. But we have to show it to Krishna. How do we love him? How much do we love him? Ye yathamam prapadyante tams tatheva bhajamyam. As one surrenders unto Krishna, Krishna rewards them accordingly. So here we can see Bhishma Dev, his desire was so pure. And his, of course, the desire to see Krishna before leaving the body, but even before, during the war, his desire was so strong that Krishna should break his promise. He should pick up a weapon. I want him to break the promise. Now one may say, why would a pure devotee want Krishna to break the promise? It's to show us, to show the world. For Krishna, the devotees, pure devotees, are more important than himself. And Bhishma Dev Pitama, he wanted to show that to us, that just to please Bhishma Dev, Krishna broke his promise, just to keep the vow of Bhishma Dev. What was the vow Bhishma Dev took? That either Krishna is going to break his promise or I'm going to kill Arjuna. So Krishna's, even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that you please declare it boldly that my devotee will never perish. That's how dear pure devotees are to Krishna. So here the verse says that Krishna, he rushed towards Bhishma Dev in an angry mood, like a lion goes to kill an elephant. I was trying to find out about how does a lion kill an elephant on Google, just to get an idea. So the Google says that it takes 7 lionesses to kill one elephant, 7 of them. And it takes 2 male lions to kill an elephant. But 1 lion cannot kill an elephant. The lions, that's why they work together to hunt an elephant. But we see here that Bhishma Dev is giving the analogy of a lion. Why? Because he knew Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he alone is sufficient. He doesn't need anybody else. He can very easily kill Bhishma Dev. Why? Because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when Bhishma Dev, he saw Krishna approaching him, Prabhupada says he gave up his weapons and he stood there to be killed by Krishna. What better opportunity than to be killed by Krishna? Is there anything better? No, because for Bhishma Dev, Krishna was his beloved Lord. He had that special rasa with Krishna. He was totally, fully, completely Krishna conscious. Even before the war, throughout his life, he was Krishna conscious. He always was working in that consciousness. And one may say, in the purport also it says that Arjuna was saved because of the sunset, right? It was the end of the war for that day. And as soon as the sun sets, finished. No one can, use the weapons. So this also was an arrangement of Krishna. That as soon as, Krishna rushed towards Bhishma Dev with the wheel and Bhishma Dev gave up his weapons and stood, it was sunset time. That means Arjuna was saved. This was an arrangement of Krishna. Can anyone else do that? No. Krishna does all the arrangements. He is the one who is the creator of this entire creation. He is the maintainer. He is the one who is all in all. In the Brahma Samhita, we have heard Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the cause of all causes, nobody else. So here when Bhishma Dev noticed, he saw that Krishna is not caring about his own promise. He is more interested in fulfilling the promise of Bhishma Dev. So that moved Bhishma Dev a lot, that Krishna, he's sacrificing his own promise just to fulfill the promise of his devotee. So that brings about the point that Krishna is so compassionate. He is so merciful, so merciful. He doesn't mind, sacrificing his own promise. He doesn't mind at all that, but he wants to give pleasure to his pure devotees. We are hearing so much about what Krishna does for his pure devotees. So that should bring about it could be a source of inspiration. How? Why not become a pure devotee of the Lord? I'm talking about myself. Why not? Because the end result will be that there will be a very strong connection with Krishna. And Krishna, like they say, God helps those who help themselves. So if we help ourselves, I'm talking about myself, to become a pure devotee, then that guarantee is there from Krishna that he would take care of his pure devotee. So this could be a source of motivation to become pure. How? By chanting attentively, reading Srila Prabhupada's books, hearing at least one Bhagavatam class every day, following the 4 regulative principles, associating with devotees, following the instructions of the spiritual master. Prabhupada has given us everything. We don't have to do any research. There's not much effort. How much effort does it take to sit down in the morning and chant attentively, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Not difficult at all. It's just that we have to make that choice. Like Krishna says in chapter 15, Sarva se chaham hridi sanivishto, mataha smritir jnanam apohanam cha. That I am situated in everyone's heart. And he says, from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, which means he's giving us a choice. What do we want to do? Do we want to remember Krishna? Do we want to forget him? Do we want his knowledge? We make the choice, and then he helps us to fulfill that choice. So here in this verse, we can see that Bhishma Dev, he was very moved to see Krishna sacrificing. He understood, of course he knew, but he understood that Krishna will do anything to keep the promise of his devotee, just to give pleasure to his devotees. And that's what he did. He gave pleasure to Bhishma Dev, that Bhishma Dev wanted to see this view, or he wanted to see Krishna rushing towards him, holding a weapon in his hand. He was so immersed in seeing Krishna approaching him with a wheel in his hand in an angry mood. There are two kinds of anger, Prabhupada says, material anger and spiritual anger. Material anger is for oneself. Spiritual anger is actually good when it is to protect a devotee, or or if someone is blaspheming devotees of Krishna and then the devotee gets angry, that is spiritual anger. But material anger, we have heard in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, when the senses come in contact with sense objects, there is attachment. And when that desire is unfulfilled, then there is anger. And anger leads to bewilderment of memory, intelligence is lost, and a person falls down. So this is what material anger does. But spiritual anger, it increases the love for Krishna. So here we can see that Bhishma Dev is remembering, he's relishing this pastime that happened during the war of Mahabharata. And he is meditating on this pastime, every aspect of this pastime. You can say every detail of this pastime, and that is giving him so much spiritual pleasure. Now the question may arise, what can we learn from this pastime of Bhishma Dev? You see, Srila Vyasadeva, who is none other than Krishna, he gave us Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a reason behind it. It's not that sometimes I hear, people say, oh, I have bought Srimad Bhagavatam because it has very nice stories to read to my children. That's nice. At least reading something else, reading stories from Srimad Bhagavatam is good. But that's not the only purpose. The main purpose of these pastimes is that we learn from them. We increase our appreciation for Krishna and his pure devotees. That is the purpose. So what can we learn from this pastime of Bhishma Dev? You see, Srila Prabhupada, he has given us a complete process by which we can purify ourselves. We can purify our senses, our mind, our body, intelligence, everything, complete purification. Srila Prabhupada's process can make us fully Krishna conscious, which is very, very important. And becoming fully Krishna conscious will make us very dear to Krishna. You see? Then we can see from this pastime that when we fully surrender to Krishna, there's full protection. Bhishma Dev, he was about to leave the body and his desire was to have darshan of Krishna. And sure enough, Krishna appeared right in front of him as he was about to leave the body. See, that was Bhishma Dev's desire. He understood, because he was fully Krishna conscious, he understood that yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatanti kalevaram. That at the time of death, whatever we are thinking of, to that state we will attain Krishna. So is without fail, that's a guarantee. So here Bhishma Dev did not just theoretically understand that, but he understood it in the sense of realizing it. And that was his desire, to have darshan of Krishna just before he leaves the body. And that desire is being fulfilled by Krishna. So Krishna, he came to fulfill the last desire of Bhishma Dev. Why? Because he is Suridam, right? Bhoktaram Yagna Tapasam Sarvalokam Maheshwara Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Natmamam Shantim Richati. That's the peace formula. And this is what Bhishma Dev had realized, that Krishna is Suhridam. He is the well-wisher. He is our best friend. He's accompanying us in all different species of lives. He's not leaving us alone. He's always there with us as the super soul, as the Paramatma, to help us, to guide us, to show us the way, to sanction our desires. You see? So we should be eternally grateful to Srila Prabhupada for opening this window to the spiritual world for us. He's given us everything that we need. He has given us everything that can save us from this ocean of material world. Now, after hearing so much about pure love for Krishna, the question may arise, is it possible? Is it possible to reach that stage of pure love for Krishna? Yes. But then the next question is, what would it take to reach that stage? We need to have that answer too. It's not just enough to say, I want to, develop pure love for Krishna. That's good. That's the starting point. But what do we do to reach that stage? First of all, there has to be sincerity. Then one should be serious about spiritual life. Not only that, there should be enthusiasm. Yes, this is my goal in life. This is what I want to achieve. I want to become fully conscious of Krishna. I want to reach that pure state of love for Krishna. And along with that, there must be tolerance. There must be patience. Thinking about patience, I remember Srila Prabhupada talked about this in many of his lectures, that patience is important in spiritual life. Just like a girl and a boy have just got married, and on their first night, the wife tells the husband, I want a child tomorrow. Is that possible? No. She has to have patience, at least for 9 months. Before that desire is fulfilled. So that patience is very, very important. We should not get disheartened if we see our progress is very slow. At least we are on the path. So following Srila Prabhupada's instructions, following the instructions of the spiritual master, following Krishna's instructions. So when Krishna will see this sincerity and seriousness, then he'll bestow his mercy. And then when we have Krishna on our side, we cannot fail. Just as Arjuna, he had Krishna on his side, so he did not fail. He won the war. He won the battle of Kurukshetra, the Mahabharata war. And our lives also is like a battlefield. We are struggling, we are fighting. We have so many obstacles. We have so many situations. But we continue. We continue with the firm faith that if we follow Krishna's instructions, we are going to be on the right path. Now, even though we have Srila Prabhupada's books, we have the knowledge, but we are still fighting. Fighting what? Maya. Maya is waiting. We are still fighting laziness. We are still fighting with distractions, so many distractions. But if somehow or the other we can hold on to the lotus feet of Guru and Krishna, then we cannot go wrong. Then we'll be very easily able to cross this ocean of material world. And Krishna says this material world is dukhalayam ashashvatam. It is full of miseries and it is temporary. So how can we build a permanent home in a temporary world? Many times I hear people say, oh, this is the home we have bought and this is our permanent home. Says who? We are going to be in this home till as long as this body will allow us to. Based on our karma, we have to leave the body at, a particular time. So there's no such thing as a permanent home. When people, they move from apartments to apartments and then finally they buy a home and they think, okay, this is the end. This is our final home. This is our permanent home. No, that would be as foolish as saying that this is my permanent body. Now I'm going to stay in this body. That's not the truth. So this is all we learn from Bhishma Dev's very wonderful life, how he was fully Krishna conscious, even though he was engaged in material duties of protecting the kingdom. So the verse once again, fulfilling my vow and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. So I'm going to end here. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mother Gita, for such a beautiful, sweet class. Really, 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 really sweet. Really want to thank you for sharing such beautiful points. Would like the devotees, would like to ask the devotees if any questions, any comments, clarification. Please do either jump right in, unmute yourself and jump right in, or you can raise your hand. And we will call upon you. But yes, Krishna Sharanam Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Such a beautiful narration showing the relationship between the Supreme Lord and the devotees. With one action, he satisfied both of his devotees. On one side, Bhishma, and on the other side, Arjuna. So, in the lecture you said, we have to show how we love the Supreme Lord. So what is the best way to show that we love the Supreme Lord? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. From what I have heard, the best way to please Krishna is to please the spiritual master. Because if we directly try to please Krishna, that is not very easy. But when Krishna sees that here is my devotee who is sincerely following the instructions of his bona fide spiritual master, and bona fide spiritual master is very pleased because the disciple is following the instructions. It's not that the spiritual master, is proud and thinks, oh, look, that disciple of mine is following my instructions. No, he's very pleased because the instructions of the spiritual master bring the disciple closer to Krishna. So when Krishna sees that one is sincerely following the instructions of Guru, then he automatically becomes pleased. And then automatically, by the mercy of Guru, the disciple starts going closer to Krishna. Okay.
Mataji, lot of devotees, lot of disciples, they are in close association with Maharaj and they serve every day, and Maharaj sees them, what they are doing, how they are doing. But we being here and Maharaj being there, so far So how do we please Maharaj, you know?
Yes, yes, I understand. But if you remember, the spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada have talked about this, that there are two ways. One is Vapu and one is Vani. And they always stress on the importance of Vani, the hearing, the sound vibrations of the Guru, because Vapu may not be possible all the time, to have the physical presence of Guru may not be possible. So I even remember a spiritual master saying that just because the disciple is, having the Vapu, the association, personal association, doesn't mean that those who are associating with the Guru, with the instructions, is any, more. It is no, there is no difference. It is the same, because like Srila Prabhupada says that I am there in my books. So when we read Srila Prabhupada's books, we are associating with Srila Prabhupada. That's how powerful this Vani association is. So it is, and you mentioned that, if we are in personal association, the Guru can see and everything, but he can see even otherwise. I will give you my personal example. Few years ago, when Gopal Krishna Maharaj visited Atlanta, and he asked me a question. It was after a program, and whatever answer I could remember at that time, I gave him. And then afterwards, after maybe 1 or 2 hours or something, I think it was almost midnight, I realized, oh, I didn't give the full answer. I should have said this, this, and this also. I forgot. So the next day, I talked to his servant, Gopal Hari Prabhu, and I told him that, can you please relay this to Guru Maharaj that, I forgot to say this, this, and this. And after some time, Gopal Hari Prabhu came back and he said, Guru Maharaj said he already knows it. There was no need for me to say, he already knows it. And that's what is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadyakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. He is the one who has seen the truth. Krishna himself says that within I am the Paramatma and without I am the bona fide spiritual master. So he knows it. So he knows our progress. He knows what's in our mind. He knows how much desire we have to progress, in spiritual life. So he knows it all. It's not necessary to have a Vapu association. Just follow the instructions and he knows it. Okay?
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Sure.
That was a very nice question. Thank you, Prabhu. Any other questions from devotees? We have about 7 more minutes for discussion. Please, you can either raise your hand on this Zoom or you can just jump right in, going down the list here. Mother, as you were giving the class, such nice class, and you were saying how Krishna is the cause of all causes. And, he does, in this pastime, you were mentioning how Srila Prabhupada says that Arjuna was almost defeated because the Lord was with him. And when you mentioned that, I was remembering, just in any devotee's life, is whenever we feel that we are almost defeated in our lives, whether it be material or spiritual, but it's always mainly material. The first question is, Krishna, where are you? And at the same time, and I get this question asked by, younger devotees, but Mataji, but Krishna is our friend, where is he? When we're almost defeated. And sometimes, we are not strong enough to actually see Krishna was there. It's just probably he has his own way of how working it out. So how can we help such devotees, Mother, to really see that Krishna is there, but it may not be the way we want? Like, how can we work with that,
Yes. I had once heard that Krishna hears all the prayers, but he fulfills them at his own time, not when we want it to be. Prabhupada also has explained that for devotees, whenever they have some suffering or some, obstacles or whatever situations there may be, they thank Krishna, that I deserved a lot more worse situations, but because of your mercy, you have only given me a token of the suffering, not all of it which I deserve. So that is a consciousness a devotee should have, that whatever Krishna is doing is for my benefit. Sometimes or most of the times we realize that afterwards, oh yes, that happened, and now I know, yes, it was for my benefit. But one needs to be at a certain level of consciousness to accept that also, because theoretically sounds good, but realizing it is another thing completely. And all these realizations are possible when one starts chanting attentively. One starts following the process of Krishna consciousness very sincerely. Not because Prabhupada says bhakti is not casual. We should not take it casually that, oh, okay, we just do bhakti at 8 in the morning every day, Bhagavatam class 8 to 9, and then we can do whatever hell we want to do. No, bhakti is 24/7. It is all the time. It is a matter of purifying our consciousness so that we come to a level where we think of Krishna all the time. And Krishna says, if I see someone really sincerely endeavoring, he says, I will help. Then he will come forward to help. Why would he help someone who doesn't need help? Right?
Yeah, Mother, because yesterday we had Bushara Prabhu, proper disciple, give class at our temple, and he was talking about, he made a statement, and I'm going to try to paraphrase it, that uh, see people who are very intelligent or intellects, um, they always feel like I need help when I need the Lord. If I don't need help, then I don't need the Lord, kind of a thing, because they just got so much intelligence that they feel that I can figure this out on my own. And then we forget that even the intellect and the intelligence and everything comes from the Lord. And then when we want the Lord, then we think of him. When we don't want it, then we don't think of him. So how can we really understand, Mother, or come to that realization, or probably develop, I shouldn't say come, because that's like a long, long process. But how can we develop, that gradual understanding that, whether I'm intellect or not, I'm still so dependent.
Yes. Best thing is to associate with such devotees, who are completely dependent on Krishna. So when we associate with such devotees, their consciousness rubs off on us. You see, Prabhupada says that if we continue to associate with a drunkard, even though we don't drink, we will end up drinking because of the influence of the association. And before we know, it'll be too late. We may be, drunk and lying on the streets or whatever. So association plays a very important part. Some may say, oh, but I live so far, I don't have association. These are all excuses. If we really want to, then we'll go that extra mile. Right? Say, supposing my child is sick, really sick, and the hospital is 2 hours away. Do you think I would sit and say, oh no, it's too far away, let's forget it? No, we will do everything it takes to take the child and get the child cured. So that we have to make Krishna our priority. And Srila Prabhupada is so merciful. He's given us a very simple process. Simple, very simple. And it starts with attentive chanting. When Prabhupada says, when we chant attentively, everything else will fall in place. Like the dominoes effect, hit one and, blah, 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 it just keeps hitting others. So association is very, very important. We need to choose the right association. If you're going to associate with those who are only interested in prajalpa, then before we know, we will start behaving just like them because we'll get influenced. So association is important.
Mother, I have one more question, and I know that Dear Krishna and I share the same question. He's online, and I think I know that his question is, how can we detect, Mother, right association? When we ourselves don't, like some people say, yes, I want right association, but they don't know what is right association, and they think any association is right association. How can we really, quote unquote, discriminate? I mean, I don't like to use that word, but you know what I mean. Like we think, okay, they're all devotees, so I'm good. But there are different levels. So how can we really detect right association?
Rupa Goswami has given us, the instructions on how to detect, who is a Kanishta Adhikari, who's a Madhyam Adhikari, who's Uttam Adhikari, and what should we do with that association. Kanishta Adhikari, then we, show compassion and give association. Madhyam Adhikari, if is on the same level, then we become friends with them. But for Uttam Adhikari, we serve them, we learn from them. So it's just, we are not in a position to, pinpoint. Like we are not an authority to pinpoint, oh, so-and-so is at this level or that level. The best way to figure out is when you associate with a devotee, what are they talking about? If they are talking about personal problems, which is also okay, but if all the time talking about personal problems, other devotees, but there's not much talk of Krishna, if there's not much talk about discussion about Krishna or his pastimes, then we know what is the level, right? So then we help such devotees, because just like Prabhupada says, a fool is known only when he opens the mouth, right? So if a devotee is trying to dovetail the conversation to Krishna, the other devotee may say, oh, this happened, that happened, whatever it is. But then if one is trying to, like for instance, I'm talking to, say you, Anasuya, and I keep telling you, oh, I have this problem and that problem and this, but you gradually dovetail it to Krishna and say, oh, that is Krishna's mercy that, Krishna has given us, this knowledge from Bhagavad Gita where we can understand actions and reactions, etc., right? You talk about Prabhupada. So then I know this is a very good association, because this devotee is reminding me, bringing back to Krishna consciousness. So we see, what is it that we are hearing in association, and then act accordingly. I hope that helps.
Very much so, Mother. Actually, the last half was even more powerful. Thank you so much. Yes, Bhakta Bread, please ask your question.
Hare Krishna, Mother Gita, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Mother Gita, I love this shloka so much and this purport. And I just wanted to talk about, just as Bhishma was being criticized by Duryodhana, and then, the string of events laid out where, he suspected, Krishna must have, stole his arrows. This was an act of fate, and he still accepted his fate and, acted courageously and valiantly in his position of Satriya, and still, charged head on and, endured the effort of wanting to kill Arjuna, and said to himself, if I am to die, then let it be by Krishna. And to me, sort of reflecting on this, it made me think of like the importance of our worth, because Krishna threw down his promises, to fulfill, the self-worth of Bhishma as this great Satriya who wanted to die by Krishna. And also, as the dear friend to Arjuna, to fulfill, Arjuna wanting to be worthy of being the friend of Krishna, and acted for Krishna. So how can we develop, our own self-worth in Krishna consciousness, and not get stuck on a step, as we say, in Krishna consciousness, and realize, that everything is a growing process and everything is banked, and there's no taking back from where you're at. And so yes, it's just a question of developing, self-worth in Krishna consciousness.
Mhm. Yes. Your questions are always it really,
It's so real. I love his questions.
Brett, you can be a very good preacher. Putting the whole thing in such good perspective, and the way you put it is amazing. So Srila Prabhupada has said that one should be humble in the sense that one should not think of oneself too much, but at the same time, what one should not put oneself down, beat oneself down. Oh, I'm useless, I'm this, I'm that. No, but not keep oneself in the focus, that, okay, everything is about I, me, and mine. So that is one sort of consciousness we have to be careful of. And what I had heard from my spiritual master is that whenever we want to measure our spiritual fever, that how much am I progressing, am I worthy, or what is it, so he said, if we notice that our material fever is going down, then our spiritual fever is going up, which means our material attractions are reducing, our material attachments are reducing. That is called reducing material fever. And increasing spiritual fever means we are actually very anxious to hear more. We are enthusiastic to attend the class every morning. We want to read Srila Prabhupada books every day. So instead of thinking about what is our level, we can just try to figure out the difference between our material fever. Oh, I used to be really crazy about so and so material activity, but now I'm not that interested. So that is an indication material fever is going down. So it is very difficult to do your self-worth, but you always need an advanced devotee who can, an advanced devotee can guide us and let us know, where we stand, can even tell us, whether our material fever is high or our spiritual fever is high. So that is why association again is very important. We need to build a relationship with devotees, with advanced devotees, so that we can reveal our mind to them. If you remember Rupa Goswami, he says, that we should, there are 6 things we can do in a relationship: give prasad, take prasad, give gifts, receive gifts. One of them is to reveal our mind to the advanced devotee. So that way we can make progress. So I hope that helps, Brett.
No, Hari Bol Mataji. I had a long discussion. This is why I wanted to ask you. I had a long discussion with a devotee yesterday about this. Our 6 loving exchanges and how we can even begin to act in them appropriately, because we all want to open our hearts up to one another, but it's not always easy, and you don't want to always jump to the first devotee you see. You want to build your relationships. And we discussed, this begins most importantly with honest inquiry, question things, ask questions to devotees, spend time with devotees, in service with devotees, as we said, like it's a Christian phrase that like idle hands or like the devil's workshop or something. So we serve together, we stay busy, we cook prasadam, we clean. But while we're doing that, we're discussing Krishna, as Prabhupada says. But then, we got to that position because we were both male devotees. So like for us, it was, confiding in, other generational male devotees and things like that. And we, it came to that point as we were listening to Srila Prabhupada as well. And it came to a point, and Prabhupada said in the lecture, while we were discussing, he was saying that he was talking about worth actually, and he was saying that how Lord Chaitanya is the most merciful, and even if we don't think we are worthy, Krishna, Lord Chaitanya always feels that we are the most worthy.
Wonderful. Very, very nice. See, this is what the benefit is of association. When we associate, you see, we are not the Supreme Lord, so we cannot know everything. It's not possible to know everything, to have all the knowledge. So when we associate, we learn from the devotees. And you're right, we cannot reveal our minds to anyone. We first need to build faith in that devotee, associate for a while. And then when that faith starts growing more firm, then we can share, then we can, open up our hearts and, get some nice, valuable instructions. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brett.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Mother Gita.
And it's nice to hear your voice, Dr. Brett. It's been a while that we're missing your association. So thank you so much for jumping in so we can hear your wonderful voice. And
I miss you all as well, Mother, honestly. Yeah, Hare Krishna.
we miss you more. But we're so glad to hear your voice. And as always, wonderful question and such nice question to help us reflect on ourselves to how to be a better servant to the devotees of the Lord. So thank you so much. And thank you to all the devotees for joining us. Just a quick reminder that this evening we have our Bhagavad Gita circle at 6 o'clock. So please do join us. Until then, have a wonderful day. Vanchakaptabhyascha Sindhabevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you so much, Mother Gita, for such a beautiful, sweet class.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Mataji, Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.